Thank you for having me on. Good evening. Yes, so as you say, we're here on hunger strike in front of the British Foreign Office, day 13, and it is to protest at the government's approach. It is in part because they're not responding to the demands of Iran. Iran has been very clear for more than 5 years that Nazanin is held over some unpaid money that the UK owes Iran. That should have been sorted out long before we were ever involved. But now you've got Nazanin and other British hostages being held. It really is time that the government steps up and resolves the problem.
Now, I know that you've spoken to Liz Truss and you're trying to get meetings and trying to get people to do something about it, because it feels like there doesn't seem to be an appetite to continue with this. The pressure doesn't seem to be there now. What do you want to happen now so that we can move forward with this?
So you're right. As you say, I had a meeting last week with Liz Truss, with also my MP, Tulip Sadiq, and our family and lawyers. And, you know, she was very warm and supportive, but didn't really have any solutions about, well, the two parts to our complaint. One is that the UK is far too weak on Iran's hostage-taking and is not willing to challenge Iran for using people in this way. And second, that she wasn't willing to explain what the problem was with the debt and why it wasn't moving. So we said to her, listen, if you carry on this path, Nazanin will be put back in prison. Iran has threatened to do so in the coming weeks. So we're still camping here in the hopes that the government will rethink, will reflect on the fact that it's not working, and will perhaps change its approach.
You've been out there for 13 days so far. We know that if you do more than 15 days, you could do yourself irreversible damage. Totally understand why you really feel you need to protest in this way, and I'm 100% behind you in a sense. But what do you do if they still haven't done anything by day 15?
Well, you're right. I mean, a hunger strike is a short-term tactic. British government, other governments tend to not respond to hunger strikes during them. So we will see what happens. We will see if we get another meeting with Liz Truss and so on. And maybe we don't. I'm not planning on continuing this to the point where I end up in hospital and in a coma. I'm planning on making the point clear that the government needs to take responsibility. The first job of government is to protect its citizens. I don't think we've quite got there yet. It felt, if I'm honest, the last meeting was a bit complacent. But you're right, I've got, doctors looking at me, family worried about me, like anyone would be in this case. So we take it one day at a time.
Nazanin's so fortunate that she's got such a wonderful man sort of looking out for her. I'm wondering, how are you coping with all of this? Because, we see you there with all your energy pushing to try and get your wife home. But it must be very difficult for you as well.
Yeah, I have to say I'm not feeling like I've got too much energy at this point. As you see, I'm wrapped up with like 9 coats on and a blanket on top of me. I think my job is to keep going for her. Sometimes it's to try and be hopeful and tell her it'll all be okay. Sometimes it's hard to feel that, and we all have our ups and downs. And there's a huge network of support behind me in terms of family, but also actually being here, lots of lovely people have come down from all walks of life, from the high to ordinary people, and that just knowing that people care and follow our story and have been sharing it and just wanted to say, listen, good luck, and we're thinking of you. Really important to keep going, but also really important for recovery afterwards. So I'm really grateful for everyone that has.
So what would you like to see then in terms of a timescale? If you could plot what you want the government to do, what would that timescale be, and what should they do?
It's a really good question. I think first, the reason we came on hunger strike was because Nazanin was threatened with imminent imprisonment. So I came out here as an escalation to stop that happening. I don't think while we're here it will happen. But yeah, I guess we're looking for the government to make it really clear to Iran that there are consequences for escalating it the way they have. And obviously to behind closed doors settling it for us and the other families. The government's not going to explain to me exactly what it's doing because that's the nature of diplomacy. But after 5.5 years, I've got every right to be very sceptical that what they're doing is working.
Yeah, and it's extremely irritating as well because the Vice President for Iran is being welcomed at COP26. I mean, that's not great. He's out there, yet your wife is still imprisoned, and nothing feels like it's moving forward.
No, that's right. It's the next week. There's an Iranian delegation being wined and dined up in Glasgow, coming over and acting like that this is a normal state that can do normal diplomacy. I think it's important that the government, the Foreign Office, makes it abundantly clear that it is unacceptable to take British citizens hostage, and I don't feel they're nearly strong enough in doing that. So there's a chance next week. There's a chance to discuss solving Nazanin's case. In fact, there are big, complicated nuclear negotiations coming along in a few weeks' time. Another chance. So hopefully, I won't keep coming on the airwaves on your show complaining about the government, and we'll be able to sort of be all happy and smiles. But at the moment, I'm not too hopeful.
That would be wonderful if we could get Nazanin out. Have you spoken to her recently?
I spoke to her today. She's obviously, generally anxious because that's what the Iranian system does to you. It puts you in a sort of perpetual anxiety. Right now, she's probably most anxious about her husband and his harebrained scheme, camping on the street in the cold and on hunger strike. So I just was reassuring her that, listen, I'm okay, still able to walk around, still feeling strong enough, and I promise you I'm being careful. I think she's obviously worried for the future, but hopefully the government will take up the chalice and bring her home.
And you said you've had a lot of warmth from people as well. How's your daughter coping with this, with her mother not being around like that?
So with her mum not being around, it's tough, and at points she clearly laments Nazanin not being here, and it is tough, and certainly all the other kids get picked up by their mums at school gates, and she just gets her dad. This hunger strike's obviously been strange for her. We were very apprehensive at the beginning, and there is a responsibility as a parent not to take it too far. She's been down a few times to camp, so she's been part of. We did some pumpkin carving and we did some stone painting, be part of the creative stuff, and I think that's made it safe enough that she's part of the protest, but also protected from its darker side. All parents try to protect their kids. In our situation, it's a hard one to do.
And I wanted to ask, because there was a time during COVID where Nazanin was under house arrest. Is she still under house arrest, or have they actually taken her to jail? Is she still with her family at home, or?
No, you're exactly right. She's formally at home. She's awaiting. So she's been given the sentence. She's awaiting the phone call to come back to prison. That phone call hasn't come. So she's in legal limbo, technically.
And while she was there, have you been able to actually see her, actually go and see her physically and actually talk to her, or has everything been communication via phone and online, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so that's right. So it's you can't get a visa to go to Iran. They wouldn't give me one. These days, now she's out of prison, I can at least see her on a Skype call. I can see her face, and that's much better than when she was in prison, where it would just be a 3-minute phone call, and there'd often be someone standing next to her. A very different kind of experience.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.